Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. If you please honor our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Madonza.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Nguyen.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Laurie.
Here.
9 present.
This is a special meeting of the City Council. I'll read the notice here. Notice is hereby given as required by Rule 6 of the City of Lowell City Council rules that the City Council will hold a special meeting in the Lowell City Council and Council Chambers on Tuesday, March 27th, 2012 at 6:30 p.m. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss matters pertaining to the office of the City Manager, including but not necessarily limited to introduction of the Mayor's aide, Greg Page, the Lowell Strategic Plan by the School Department, master planning process, and the goals and objectives of the City Manager by order Patrick O. Murphy. This is the second of 7 special meetings this year on oversight. This meeting, of course, devoted primarily to the City Manager. But these are also meant to really provide an opportunity, a forum for discussion about the long-term planning of the city. And so with that, we'll begin with the introduction.
Mr. Mayor, I have a moment of silence.
Oh, excuse me. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Edward J. Busby, a young man of 51, a lifelong resident of the city of Lowell who died unexpectedly after a long battle with cancer. Edward Busby attended St. Peter's Grammar School and Austin Prep School. Edward worked for 7 years in the DPD and most recently retired from the Special Services Department with the City of Lowell. He leaves behind his mother, Mitzi, many cousins and many friends at City Hall, as well as his favorite pal, Molly, his dog. We offer our sympathy to the family. May he rest in peace. Thank you.
Would you all please rise in a moment of silence in Docking Chambers?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. At this point, we'll introduce the new Mayor's aide, Greg Page.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, city officials. Sorry about that. Mr. Mayor, councilors, city officials, and other distinguished guests, good evening. My name is Greg Page, and I was recently appointed by Mayor Murphy to serve as the aide to the mayor. As you all know, last week had its ups and downs. Working at City Hall has been great. There's been a lot flying around in print and in the airwaves, some true, some not so much. Thankfully, I've had my father-in-law to help me keep perspective. He came to this country 27 years ago from Cambodia to escape communism. And what he told me was, here, anybody can say whatever they want, and it doesn't have to be true because it doesn't matter, because anyone else can say whatever they want back. And in the system that he escaped, people were terrified to say what they wanted to because they thought if they did, they'd be reported by their neighbors to the government and never seen again. So he said, as much as you think you sometimes don't like this system, it's a lot better than the one that he knew. And then he went on to say, and he seemed really serious, as long as they don't deport you, we'll think you're a success. So that's where Mayor Murphy and I have set the bar, and that's the standard that we hope to maintain. And there's also several initiatives we've already got underway, and I want to briefly just talk about those. The first is increasing citizen involvement. And the reason for that is that too often people feel a disconnect between themselves and the people that make decisions that affect their lives. And especially on the municipal level, that gap is often bigger in perception than reality. So to help close that gap, Mayor Murphy recently announced that he'll be holding regular office hours. So from 4 to 6 on Wednesdays, from 3 to 5 on Fridays, he'll be available in his office to meet with any citizen for any reason. They can drop in, no appointment needed, come as you are. To accommodate other citizens who might not be able to do that, he'll set up any meeting individually during other hours, and also offer up Mondays from the first Monday of each month from 12 to 2 on Facebook for a virtual office hour. In addition, we've set up an Office of the Mayor Twitter account that's going to enable Mayor Murphy to talk about some of the great things that go on in the city that aren't always publicized by the traditional news media outlets. It also enables him to learn about events going on in real time from citizens as they happen, again, bypassing the time and the filter of traditional news. So with all those things going on, there's going to be just a different communication flow coming out of the office. One other thing we're working on is an Office of the Mayor YouTube channel. And the idea behind that is to talk about some frequently violated ordinances and just help spread awareness of those. And the idea of spreading awareness is that people shouldn't learn about an ordinance or an ordinance changing when they're being punished for it. They should actually learn about it ahead of time. And when that happens, we think there'll be better trust between citizens and the government. As far as listening to people's ideas, just Saturday, we were down at the Southeast Asian Water Festival fundraiser, and we bumped into somebody that had worked in a field office for a congressperson. And what she told us was, in all her time there, some of the best ideas, the stuff that actually made it into legislation, was stuff that originated just from people dropping in, or people calling, or people emailing their ideas. So we want to encourage scooping up all the ideas of people and then seeing what works and working hard with the council to see what can become reality. The second theme is something that Patrick Mogan used to talk about a lot, and it's finding developmental rather than reparative Band-Aid type solutions. Outside aid and grant money are great. Obviously, they're better to have than not to have. But in the long term, we want to look to things that'll help the city become sustainable on its own. Sort of to put a new spin on an old phrase, we don't want to have to rely upon the kindness of strangers. We want to see where we can do it ourselves. And that might mean meeting with businesses and then working with DPD or working with the Merrimack Valley Sandbox and seeing how we can help promote economic development here. On the community level, that might mean leveraging existing talent pool within the city to market the city and promote local pride of ownership, which is not only more cost effective, but often more quality effective than work we've seen done by outside groups. And just one case in point that I would cite there is the Howell and Lowell promotional video. I don't know if everyone's seen it, but it was like a spoof of the halftime commercial from the Super Bowl. But it really captured so much of what the city is, and it did it so much better than anything, at least that I've seen, as far as slick promotional stuff. And it was done right here in the city by folks in the city. Of course, the biggest transformational change going on right now involves UML and the whole expansion of the campus and the change in the campus to more of a residential versus a commuter setting. But everybody already knows that. What we don't know, though, is how that's going to affect the residents of the city and what the potential is for that to change the way that citizens interact with the university. So like just yesterday, for instance, we met with Paul Marion. We listened to all his great ideas, and then we stole them all. So we hope to, based on some of those ideas, we hope to have some initiatives coming out of our office that are going to help with some of the linkages and some of the amazing opportunity out of UML in terms of what we can tie into the city. As you all know, Mayor Murphy views the role of the mayor as something greater than just presiding over a couple meetings a week, reacting to events after they happen, and cutting ribbons. He sees the role for its full potential, which is making meaningful change in the city to steer its course in a direction that maximizes quality of life for existing residents and also promotes the city to new ones. And I'm just trying to make sure the guy isn't double booked, which is harder than some of you might realize. But all the citations, proclamations, and event planning that have taken place out of the mayor's office, all that stuff's going to continue to happen as it always has and it always should. Meanwhile, I'll work tirelessly with the entire city council, the school committee, and everyone else at City Hall to help make Lowell even greater and realize its potential. And I want to mention on that note that every account we set up, all the stuff we're talking about social media and communications out of the mayor's office, that's all being deliberately set up so that it's tied to a City Hall email address, not to anyone's personal email address. And then there's a reason for that, and it's because it'll set the next mayor up and the next mayor up and the next mayor up to be able to do the same things right off the bat, right from day one. That's really all I have to say. Just want to say I'm glad to be aboard and look forward to working with everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. At this point, I'd like to have the school department present on the Lowell strategic plan, and I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Ann Murphy for being here, and would recognize Superintendent Jean Franco.
Good evening, everyone. I am just here to thank you all for this privilege of presenting to you the strategic plan for the future of young children in Lowell. I think that you'll see through the presentation that all neighborhoods are included in the planning, and we have some wonderful data to share with this body who cares so much about the youth of Lowell. So it's my privilege to have been invited here, and I just wanted to be the face of welcome. Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you during my superintendency, and I'm going to present the people who did the real work, and that is Ms. Terry O'Neill and Ms. Pat Pinchot Murphy. They are the District Support Specialists for Early Childhood at the Lowell Public Schools, and this is a project that they helped to lead. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Jean, for that introduction. We're going to begin the presentation tonight with some actual reports from parents or statements from parents. We really felt it was important to hear their stories of what it meant for them to come to Lowell and to be welcomed into this city, and just some of their experiences. I'm going to be introducing them, but in your packets, if you wanted to follow along, there is a parent script that you can refer to as well. We have 6 speakers tonight as parents. I'm going to just name them, and then they're going to be coming up to do some of their statements. Sume from Burma is here, Mumu from Burma, Pachu Viv from the Congo, Visal Kim from Cambodia, Maria Guaman from Ecuador, and Rath Higgins from Cambodia. So I'm going to welcome each one of them tonight to the podium, just to say a quick statement that will kind of give us the foundation for the presentation this evening. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Suma and from Burma, and I came to Lowell 2 years as 6 months ago. And I was son alone and alone. I first came to Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you, Sume.
Hi, my name is Mumu. I am from Burma. I speak a lot of English and well. So where to go for help was a resource from me is my family. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pachu. I'm from Congo. However, I was able to find a family literacy program that helped me and my family. I go to school with my preschool child, and together we learning English and work on important language and school skill at school, home, and in the community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Visal. I'm from Cambodia. My child is getting ready for kindergarten and have made so much progress. I am now able to use English in the community to help my family. I know about important things, resources, and where to go for help. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm from Ecuador. I have become a story and more confident parent and person. I know how important education is for me and my family. I am ambassador.
Good job, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rod.
I am from Cambodia. We want all the families in the Lowell with young children to have the same opportunity. We hope that the plan you are going to learn about tonight will be one that you agree with and support on behalf of all families like me. Thank you.
I'd like to thank our parent speakers and all the other parents who came here tonight in support of our plan, as well as members of our Early Childhood Advisory Council who were part and parcel of this plan that we're going to implement this evening. So I'd like to just acknowledge our Advisory Council members, and please stand so we can give you a hand as well. We have many more that are rooting for us from their home location, perhaps, but we're happy to have those with us tonight. I also would like to acknowledge Anita Muller from the Department of Early Education and Care, who will also be speaking as part of the presentation this evening, but thank you for coming tonight. So we're going to begin. We do have a PowerPoint to highlight some of the points and to tell you a little bit about the process of our plan. And we're hoping that as a city council, you'll be able to recognize what our message really is that as a community, as a city of Lowell, all working together, not only within the school department, but all of us working together to support families will make a difference to our city. And we're here tonight to present that information to you. Really, the future of Lowell is our ability to raise healthy children and to make a very productive city for them to grow up and live and be educated in. And we really feel that when we work together with families and with the community, we make our city stronger. And we're trying to explain and show some of that information tonight as to the importance of this. So we wanted to, again, present this plan to you in the hopes that you agree. We have some data this evening that we're going to present on the next couple of slides. Sorry. And, sorry, hold on. Let me just get back here. And though this is really looking at it from a school perspective, we also do feel that as a community, if we are looking at children in our community, the more we can do for them prior to coming into school, the stronger they're going to be coming into school, and we can continue that education for them. We really feel that as a community, we want to be vested in the children and families of Lowell, and we can do that together. We know that some of this data that we're presenting tonight does show the urgency of us working together with children and early with children in the community. And we know that from a school's perspective that many of our children entering kindergarten come in with, lacking many of the basic skills, which they come in with some vocabulary deficits and other deficits which will, impact their ability to learn and to read in school. We know that about 88% of first graders who are below grade level in first grade or in reading will continue to be below grade level through the fourth grade. Obviously, this has an impact on school performance and just academic achievement for children. And it does certainly impact our well-being as a community. We really do feel that by building a solid foundation for children and families, it's going to be an incentive for people looking at the city of Lowell and encouraging them and wanting them to come here to the city of Lowell. We do believe also that family readiness is also an important part of our plan. And the community, I think, is also helping us to build those skills for families in order to promote school readiness. I think one of the most alarming pieces of data that we looked at here are looking at the first 2,000 days of a child's life as being critical in supporting brain development. And the comparison was given that you're looking at the brains of children who may not have been stimulated as a young child with vocabulary or play skills or language skills, and their brains simulated the brains of many adult stroke victims. So it's very crucial to really mold and provide children with experiences when they're young in order to promote that development of their brain and learning. And we also know that the more words that are used in a child's home will greatly influence their own vocabulary development, which will allow them to be a better and able student in school and to have some of those solid skills when they enter school. We also know that children from low-income families, they hear they hear millions of fewer words than children from more affluent homes by the age of 4. These are really important statistics as we look at this, as what can we do as a community to try to reach out to families and strengthen our families and neighborhoods well before they come to school. So this is, I think, the crucial piece of this plan that we're going to highlight tonight. We know that reading to children matters, and we know that fewer than half of children are read to daily. Many children do not have access to books in their homes. Many families don't have the resources to provide those books in their homes. So again, these are important pieces of information in looking at our city and what can we do to make some of these changes. I'm going to have Anita come up now to talk a little bit about what the Coordinated Family and Community Engagement Grant is, how is it rolled out and connected to the state, and what is the primary goal or goals of that grant to support children and families, not only in Lowell, but across the state.
Hello, city leaders. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Anita Moeller, and I'm the Northeast Regional Director of the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care. Department of Early Education and Care is one of 3 state agencies within the Education Secretariat under Secretary Paul Reville. There's early education, K-12, and higher ed. So we're really focused on the beginning years of children's education, and we're really proud of the work that's going on here in Lowell. We give a grant each year. This Coordinated Family and Community Engagement Grant comes into the city of Lowell. It's about $275,000 or so. But those funds are only as good as the foundation on which they are spent. And I think here in Lowell we have tremendous collaboration, and the work that's been invested into this strategic plan that you'll hear about tonight was also funded through a small grant from my state agency. But again, it's going to a community that's really rich and ready to build on successes, a strong foundation here in the city. The priorities of we call it the CFCE grant, are really designed to help communities reach out to all children, not just ones in preschool programs, not ones that are already in kindergarten or a family child care home. All kids, hard to reach kids, all kids, because education begins at birth. We know that, some would say even before him. And so we want our communities to be able to reach out, engage. Maybe families attend something at the public library. Maybe they go to a play group. Maybe they participate in a Head Start or a preschool program or are at the public school preschool. But this grant is really designed to have a community help reach and find and bring families in so that before kids get to kindergarten, they've been exposed to literacy, to language, to family activities in their community. So I think you can see why Lowell is a rich place on which to lay the foundation of these funds. So the goals basically are to offer high-quality consumer information, let families know, reach out to all families, like I said, and let them know what's available in their communities. Help families transition between programs, whether it's between, a public preschool and a kindergarten class, or Head Start and public school, or the early intervention program and special ed programs at the public school. Help families with those transitions that are critical to kids. Family literacy. You heard the statistics about reading to children. It's really important to get books into the hands of parents and get parents to understand that telling their native stories, telling their children's stories, talking, having a literacy-rich environment is critical to the success of their kids as they enter school. Just words, fill the kids' lives with words. Aligning pre-K to 3, grade 3. We're early education. We believe that early education goes up through grade 3. It's not just the 2 years of preschool before a child goes into kindergarten. It's birth right up through 3rd grade. Those are the early years of learning that are critical, and we need to help make the transitions and the connections for families right on through. Access to training and technical assistance, so programs know where to go when they need training, when they've identified a need, whether it's among their staff, their families, where to go to get further education, and then doing what Lowell does so well, engaging in an integrated and aligned collaborative planning with community stakeholders as partners. You see here the advisory members, they're here talking to the city. I mean, I think it's fantastic here in Lowell, the history of collaboration that exists here, and the parent involvement is beautiful. So we're proud of Lowell. This is a grant that comes to the Lowell Public Schools and is doing a rich work, and the time that they took to build a strategic plan that really even thinks further is just a testament to the work that's being done here as well. And they'll talk to you more about the strategic plan. It was really designed to help communities think further about how can we address these priority areas, what can we build on here in Lowell, and I'm excited for you to hear about the great work that they've done. So on behalf of the department, I'm happy to be here and to congratulate the community for the work that you've done.
Now, my job is to tell you a little bit about the process and how we did it. Who our partners are, as you can see, we have some members here. It's a unique collaboration of community leaders in Lowell who have a shared invested interest in education, health, and well-being of our city's youth, ages birth to 14, and we're really about building strong families. When we started this process, as Anita said, it was a small grant that came into the city of Lowell, and it really has turned out to be a very large grant for us and a very meaningful thing. What we did in the beginning is start to map out where are the resources and what does Lowell already have? What do we know about Lowell? We developed some demographics of the state of the families with young children. We try to look at who are they, where do we know, what do we know? We created 15 community profiles of agencies that are here to try to get a picture of what Lowell really represents. We developed and disseminated parent and provider surveys. And with help from our partners, we were very pleased at the numbers. Normally, when we do parent surveys, the numbers are low. We had over 507 parents respond to this survey, and 165 service workers. So as you see, a lot of people were very vested in giving us their opinions on what they need and what the community needs. We had key interviews from key stakeholders, and we asked them the questions: what is Lowell need? Where do we need to go to strengthen our families? And we looked at some data of trends and patterns that are happening here in Lowell. And then we developed the strategic plan and some action steps. So of the 507 Lowell parents that responded, 53 are married and 33 are single parents. From the 507, we had 14 languages represented in the surveys. That shows you who our community is. We had 66% of our families identified themselves as low-income poor, with a majority of them earning under $30,000. And most parents that responded rented rather than own their own home. So what did we learn? We learned that looking at our families, that families do know in Lowell where to go to get food, housing, fuel assistance, and medical assistance. What they don't know and they need help from, they need to know where to go for early care and education programs. They need help searching for jobs. They're looking for children and family activities and events. They need help with literacy support, mental health services in the community. They need help identifying where to go for domestic violence, legal assistance, and some special education. We learned that 29% of our families are using our neighborhood parks and playgrounds, our museums and swimming in our malls. So we know where our families are, a quarter of our families are doing activities with their children. They're reading to their children. One of the alarming statistics that we saw was that only 2% of our families are accessing the library. That's an important piece. So part of our goals and outreach is how do we get our families connected to the library? And all these are working to build stronger families. Topics of interest for families, a few of them were working with positive behavior strategies for their children, helping to build their children's literacy and learning, how to choose a better educational program for their child, building self-esteem, bullying prevention, and special education supports. What families told us what they would like is music performance, storytelling, movies, health-related events, and resource fairs.
So I think, as you can see, some of these points really highlight that the core to our success is really engaging ourselves as a community along with families. And I think that's our goal in coming here this evening, is to see how can we outstretch and outreach this plan. It's really bigger than just our school department. It's really looking at Lowell as a city. So we do appreciate your time to hear this evening. Some of the goals of the 3-year plan that were written into the strategic plan, and you have a full copy of the plan in your folders, by the way, but some of the highlights that are really specific to the community, I'm just going to point out a couple of those. One of them is looking at the development of some type of perhaps a mobile type resource, or maybe satellites within the community that we can serve families through a family resource center. We know we have a family resource center as part of our school department, where we do our registration and other services for families. But we also know that we want to have maybe replicate that and add maybe different services to that in the different neighborhoods of Lowell, so that we can reach out to families and target neighborhoods and not always anticipate them having to come to a specific site. So perhaps some type of a mobile provision of that, or satellite sites where families can come and ask questions and be connected to resources. Another piece also that I think speaks to us as a community need is really capitalizing on the diversity that we have in Lowell, and the cultural diversity and the recreational offerings, and being able to expose more families in Lowell to those great resources that we have. In addition, we're looking at some information on where do we house and store information and resources? What type of maybe online access can we use, or other resources to keep us all current? So when we're dealing with families in general, we'll all have similar knowledge about where they might go for help and resources. Some of the implementation strategies which go along with the goals, looking at a network of collaborative community partners. And I think by coming here tonight, we're hopefully extending our partnership and engaging more people in our goal of implementing this strategic plan. Also, I think in looking at our community as a tool for learning, and we're going to give you some examples tonight of things that we've already done in the city that will starting to move this plan forward. I think if you take a look at the full strategic plan in your file, you'll see that it's very broad. It's also very deep. And I think our goal is to really ensure success for children, not only within school, but within our community. Some steps that we've taken so far, and looking at the first year of the strategic plan, because I think the topic has become very expansive, we've had the ability to bring on new members of our Early Childhood Advisory Council. We have a monthly meeting, and we typically have, I don't know, between 30, 35, sometimes 40 participants in this council, representing multiple entities throughout the city. Child care programs, early intervention, DCF, MSPCC, hospitals, International Institute, multiple agencies, and if have not spoken to some of them, I apologize, but and we're constantly building membership. We've gained some participation from the United Way. We've had actually someone here from City Hall, the neighborhood planner, has joined us on some occasions as well. So we're building and accruing our membership, which has been exciting. We've also been able to identify some community spaces within the community to begin to roll out some of these playgroup and family engagement activities. And we've been reaching out to different community entities, and they've been very accepting and willing to share space with us, which is wonderful. And by having those spaces, we're able to look at some playgroups and different dad and me or he and me groups, music and movement activities. And our goal is really to look at families that aren't already connected to a program. We're trying to find those families that aren't linked somewhere so that we can begin to build that base and foundation with them. And I think also we've strengthened our collaboration with existing programs and resources. We spoke about the limited access that parents have with the library. Molly Hancock is on our advisory council from the Children's Library, and she's part and parcel of helping us to roll out these programs. We've added a whole layer of raising a reader programs within the city of Lowell, and really trying to expand more parents and children being engaged in those activities. We've started some collaborations with Lowell Community Health Center so that we're looking at families at birth and maybe identifying some of the challenges that they present with, and how can we help them at an early stage, connect them with some resources, and give them kind of a plan or a goal to move forward with their children. It's also allowed us to strengthen our own school department, and the early childhood department is now working even more collaboratively, I think, with special education and curriculum and student support around these common issues about who are these families and how can we work together to help them. Terry's also going to present some of the alignment features of our plan, how they relate to the superintendent's plan, as well as some of the state initiatives.
Thanks, Pat. One of the things we did learn in the data that we collected before we get into the alignment is we asked families, where did they go to get their information? We thought it was the public schools, we thought it was community agencies, and it's not. Families told us that they talked to their family and their friends. So it really made the mission of us to take this strategic plan to the streets is to really let families know where these resources are so they can tell their family and their friends. What we tried to do is align our strategic plan to what's happening here in the city. We aligned it to the superintendent's, Jean Frankel's new 3-district goals: communication, oversight, and shared leadership. It is open and inclusive for all community members and parents that have a shared interest in creating a system to support and strengthen children and families. Response to instruction is that we're looking for multiple learning opportunities for our city parents and for our children to build their early literacy skills and their social development. And narrowing the achievement gap for the students in special education. We believe by building a cohesive system and identifying children young that we can help the children through the process. We've worked with our healthcare providers to help us and start to identify and making the connections. We have aligned it with the state, as you heard Anita Muller talk about the EEC's direction, where they're going. We're trying to make sure that we're aligning where Lowell's going along with the state, so as opportunities come up, we're ready and we're there. So we're trying to coordinate the support to families to make sure that we have access and affordability. The larger goal of building a system of early care and education for children and families here. As you may know, that Massachusetts is linked to the Early Race to the Top Challenge Grant. Massachusetts is receiving $50 million for that grant, and we are hoping that our strategic plan is aligned with the state so that Lowell would be available to receive funds. So as we looked at this, we tried to make sure that we're preparing ourselves and building a system here in Lowell.
As we draw towards the end of our presentation, we do have a couple of acknowledgements that we wanted to bring forward this evening as well. Even though the Lowell Public Schools, the Early Childhood Office, is the lead agent for this grant, this work could not be done without the community members and advisory participants that we've had participating with us month after month, and we are deeply indebted to them as community members, and the parents and program staff that are here this evening. Without their support, again, this work would not be possible. We also wish to acknowledge Linda Warren and Benita Danzing. They were two facilitators that we were able to work with to lead us through the strategic planning process. They are from Early Childhood Associates, Incorporated in Framingham, and their work was really essential to those interviews that were conducted and really helping us to accumulate the data and to analyze the data and to help us in putting the data to a set of goals. So we do thank them for their hard work and dedication. As a last piece, by presenting this evening, some call for action items. We hope that in hearing our plan and maybe asking some questions about it, that you too support and can approve this plan. By doing that, we're hoping that your knowledge of the plan will help us to link further into the community, to maybe put some other resources at our hands or community members who might be part and parcel of helping us to implement our goals. We invite you to be a participant of our monthly Early Childhood Advisory Council if you'd like to come and hear about some of the things that we're discussing or to help us brainstorm some of these next steps. We also are here this evening to celebrate what we already know is a great city and the rich diversity that we have in our community, and the many partners and programs that are already in place and working together to support and strengthen families. We're really building on the strength of Lowell by moving it to that next level. And again, we thank you this evening for your time and for your ability to hear and listen to our plan, and we hope that you learned some information and will engage with us as partners as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you all for the presentation. At this time, I'd open it up for the council for discussion.
Yeah.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me say, welcome to City Hall, and boy, you look beautiful with all your costumes. You're so elegant from Ecuador. I feel like I'm in your country right now. And Lowell is very wealthy in ethnic diversity, and we're always saying, welcome to Lowell, and that's what we see here. We see parents that are coming into the city, and I know that you're frightened. I understand that. I heard you say that. You're frightened. And we are trying to provide a service through education, through the school department, for early development, not just development for the children, but development for the adults as well. And the reason I'm so excited about this is because on the 20th of March, I had an appointment at the school department on Rogers, at the Rogers School, and I had the opportunity to go downstairs and see firsthand the remarkable training that has taken place there, the cooperation with the families and the children being taught on one side to get them ready and developed to go into the kindergarten, because it's tough and scary to go in blindsided, but this has given the children a chance to develop and gain skills and language so that they feel a little bit more confident at that early, impressionable age where they learn right away at that young age. So I'm just so proud, and I love your program because this is what government is at its best when we're helping people. We hear people all the time say, gee, you're in this country, why don't you learn it? And you're doing that, you're learning it. And then you'll be able to converse back and forth with your children. It's so remarkable, it's so beautiful. But let me just say, I was very impressed as well with the teachers because I could see the love that they were showing to not only the children, but the parents as well. So this is a win-win situation. I'm very proud of all of you, and thank you for believing in yourself to learn that you can do it. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the presentation? Councilor Noon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to echo what Councilor Mercia's comment. This is important. This is about helping children to start preschool. Not only that, but also the parent involved and the parent who lack in English skill, working together with the teachers to help their children, and then they're able to take this back home. I totally agree with the educator that when parents involved, our children will do better. No question about it, whether that be in school or after school, academically and socially. And to have parents of diverse group from different countries involved in this is a great thing for the city of Lowell. And going forward, it's preparing our children for success, not failure, because as you study indicated that, if you start in school with little reading skill, kindergarten or grade 1 on, you're going to be behind. And you're not going to do well in school. You're going to be frustrated. Eventually, you're going to drop out. And this is a great thing. Question I have for the coordinator is that what is the number of parents now involved with the program?
Are you talking about, well, the program I think that Rita was speaking about is the program we have at the Rogers School.
Right.
And that's one of many programs that are happening in the city. And we're so very proud of that program and model. We have about 25 families who come each day consistently, parents and children, to that program. And I think one of the things that we're hoping to do is to outreach further into the community and to replicate this type of model in different settings so that we give more parents opportunities to have a time with their child, to be able to interact with staff who facilitate those groups, so that parents can also learn those important skills that maybe aren't already enrolled in a program. So we're hoping to take those same good ideas that we know help to strengthen families and bring them out into the community settings within some different locations, and some of the churches that are here in Lowell, as well as some of the apartment complexes that house many families. So we're really looking at how can we bring that message and good teaching information out to different families so that we can strengthen more families.
The number that I was questioning was the number of parents involved in the CFCE program, and that's what I'm asking.
Okay. Well, there's multiple, it's different levels of participation.
Right.
We always are seeking more parents, though, as actual council members for our monthly meetings. But parents are our partners, as they help us to roll out and implement these strategies. And some of the parents here, many of them are our ambassadors who are now outreaching to the members of our community and looking for other parents that they know aren't connected to agencies or into different programs. So I don't have a number to give you per se to that answer, but our goal is really, as you heard one of our parents use the word ambassador, we're hoping that our parents here this evening serve in that role as ambassadors and can help outreach to other families.
If I may suggest to you, that is in reaching out to more parents, that you may want to reach out to LTC. They do have TV access in multi-language,
Yes.
where you can access to parents through their weekly show.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How many families presently are within the program?
Our program is, we also do weekly play groups without the city. We also have home visiting in and out people's homes. I would have to say the average we're reporting on is around 230 families in and out of different programs that we see or that we touch through our play groups. As Anita mentioned, we have different, and we're trying to do more through the community. And I think, too, when we talk about our parent ambassadors, they're the best ones to help us to get into the neighborhoods. So we're really trying to work with our families to give them the skills to build that.
And how many children approximately?
I'd say probably 300. I mean,
It's hard. It's, again, we also use we have the public school preschools, we have the community-based preschools, so when you start counting them up, we could be talking a couple of thousand children because we do different activities. The grant reaches families in so many different ways.
Right.
And I think that's what the strategic plan kind of helped us to see what families need. It wasn't ours just saying, we're going to do. This really kind of gave us a format of what families want.
So the families really are driving the program?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank the presenters, and I also want to thank Ms. Moeller for coming from the state. We appreciate very much your enthusiasm for Lowell and the compliments you made about the city. We feel the same way about the good work that these folks are doing in the school department. I did want to ask just a couple of questions, either to Terry or Pat or whoever wants to answer, but is, you said 275,000, is that the amount of the grant?
Yes.
And is that recurring every year? How many years have we got it?
We hope so. We're actually in our rewriting our grant, but I think it's pretty much a given. I think we try to stay true to our goals, but I'll let Anita, if you wanted to just address that.
It's a renewal grant. It's actually the bringing together of 3 different grants that used to exist in the past, and they've come together and they've been renewed each year. Of course, our budget is dependent on what we get, but it rolls out and is renewed.
All right. And do we have a sense, maybe this is for the local folks, but what works? I mean, or how we measure success is, Head Start's been around for a long time. I would guess that maybe that's one of your partners, but if that works, how do we tell if that works? You test entering reading levels at first grade, or how are we going to know if this stuff is working? and what isn't working, and how do we allocate resources among the things that work better?
Well, I think that there's many different responses to that. I think we can look at the readiness of kindergarten children coming into the city of Lowell. Are they ready to learn? Where are their skills at? I think it's also, I like to say the success is how many families feel welcome to come into our schools and feel like they are our partners, because you know we can do what we can with our children, but it really takes all of us to work it together. We work with all our community agencies, our family child care systems, so we're on a constant, have a relationship with them. We know where their levels are, children learning. This year we're using another grant through the state with the EEC. We're doing Teaching Strategies Gold, which is a new preschool assessment. So we're starting, this is the first time we're collecting data on the preschool children and where they are, and trying to align that to where we need to go. But I think every time we meet a family out there in the community, we're looking at there's a new plan to ages and stages. We're trying to develop where are kids at, help families connect to early intervention, to the school department special education, or to a playgroup. So I think that as we roll out more plans, we're getting a better sense of where our children are. And again, it's not something that we collect that data before, but we're really focusing in on that now. We also know a lot of children are coming to the public school and kindergarten where the children have had no access to preschool. So that's why we're more out there trying to get these play groups going, because we know right now we're ending our kindergarten registration for the month of March. We know we have over 120 children that have never been anywhere.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilor Laurie.
Just out of curiosity, over the years, even when I was growing up and I was in high school, the children were the interpreters in the family. As a mailman, I saw it even more. With these programs, the children, I'm sure, are still, in many cases, the interpreter. Do you see the grandparents or the parents, the immersion into the society quicker?
I think so, and the parents here tonight are fine examples of that. Many of these families have only been in our country or even in our city, let alone for under 2 years, and you can already see their growth. And I think by welcoming parents, trying to provide native language support as much as possible, and that's why using our parents to help outreach to other families is crucial, because a parent's going to relate more to someone that they identify with or has the same language, and we certainly don't have all those language capabilities. But I think you do see parents willing to want to learn, and I think what I've learned about families in my years of experience is all families want to learn. It's sometimes they're just not sure where to get started or how to do that. Right. So these programs are really building a foundation for parents so that they can ask questions about their child's development. They can ask where to go for help. So it's really about connecting, providing support, right, and really giving parents what they need and helping to build their own skill level that they then can enable and help their child more and really understand what school is for, how do we get ready for school, what can we do at home with our child. So I do really see parents wanting to do that, and hopefully these programs can help provide that for them.
That was the feeling I was getting, especially I was a mailman for over 30 years in the city, and you relied on the kids. So being here tonight and listening, I thought maybe that's something I was seeing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank Ann Murphy and Terry O'Neill and Pat Murphy, Pat Nutt, as well as Anita Moeller. I think this was very helpful from my perspective. I have to say I was taken aback a little bit on the third slide when I read that 33% of children in the U.S. entering kindergarten lack basic language skills, and then the following figure that 88% of first graders who are below grade level in reading, and they continue to read at that level through fourth grade. So when the state is setting these standards and they're expecting communities to raise the bar in language arts and sciences, I think it was very interesting that you have taken a grant and identified what is happening that's beforehand, what's happening in the early years that are bringing these students with lack of skills or abilities, and you're doing something about it. And it's a comprehensive approach from what I've learned tonight. Of course, resources is a challenge, you know that, but I think the word collaborative effort with everybody, and and to leverage what resources we can to be able to bring these kids into the kindergarten or first grade with the skills and abilities that they need. So and you're very passionate about it, and you can tell bringing the families down, letting people at home see, these are people in Lowell, these are Lowellians, a future of our city, and we've identified the challenges and we're doing something about it. So it was very informative and helpful, and it's good to know that something is being done about it, and you're taking the bull by the horns, and looks like there's a path to success.
Thank you. Could I make one more response into how do you know if this works question? Because it's a really good and a valid question, and I think a lot of leaders want to know this investment in our city. How will we know if we're doing a good job? And measuring the outcome for kids on involvement of their families is a really hard thing to do. There's no test, there's no MCAS test for babies, thank goodness. We don't want an MCAS test for babies. But we do know that what the Lowell community is doing is research-based. So what the things that they're doing are based on research that points to good outcomes for kids. For example, we know research tells us that involving families really early in the lives of their kids around things like literacy and being proactive and engaged with their school, whether it's a public school, preschool, whatever, playgroup, that is going to have results for kids over time. That having any language-rich environments for kids are going to help them be literate when they go to school. They'll learn English, but they need to be surrounded by lots of words. And creating the opportunities that they're creating are all evidence-based approaches that point to success. It's really hard to measure child by child, and at the department we're trying to come up with data, child by child data elements that we can work to do that. And Terry and her team have volunteered to be part of that assessment thing. That's something they did. What did we give you, a $25 gift card? I think we gave them for participating and some tools. But that's something they have stepped up to do because they want to be able to help answer that question. How do we know if it's working? Want to be able to measure outcomes for kids, which is a tough thing to do when they're really young. Know that the work that they're doing is research-based, evidence-based, and that they're working with us as we try and come up with those measures so that we can point even in a more detailed way to success for kids. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Mayor, I just had one question. You did highlight that only 2% of your respondents use the library. And then 61% don't have access to books. So how do you feel you're going to, through education, or how do you make the link? How do you let them know that there's a resource?
Everything we do, we try to connect back to the library and take the library there. Molly Hancock from the library has been wonderful about taking the library out to the community. I think we have to look differently at things. We have to make sure there's no walls and really start being creative. And I think because we have so many partners that really want to help us with this, I think it really does. I think every time we do a play group or we do a literacy event, we're trying to give families books. We try to get resources to give free books. I think the more we do, the better connect we are. We're doing play groups at the libraries to try to bring families there. And again, she's coming out to the community. So we're using our schools, our community agencies to do a lot of the literacy groups from the library. And then we link the families back. We try to take our families over and get them library cards. So we really trying to think hard about that. And I think we're open to any other suggestions if people have them. If you know of other ways we can link, I think our doors are open for anything, because we need to work at this as a community.
Right, I agree. This might be old school, but if they don't go to the library, do we try to go to them? Is the bookmobile something that, sometimes, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to see if it works. And is that an option? Is that still happening?
Sure it exists. I mean, if you ask our council, and that's one of the things of the wonderful thing about writing this is we feel like now we're ready if there is a private company or we could work as a community together to look for a mobile van that could do that and also take resources. A lot of families don't know where to get mental health services and other things. There's so many things that can be on that van that we can go into each neighborhood and have a set day a week and have it manned by people that know the answers and can link things, and we can be giving out books. We have Reach Out and Read, which is at the Lowell Community Health. So doctors, the pediatricians there are giving books and trying to make the linkage. We're trying to build that stronger. We're doing Raising a Reader, which is giving bags and books that go home we're educating families how to use it, and then sending books home, and then them sending them back and replenishing the books. So we're trying to look at different avenues to do that, but again, it takes a whole community to build that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Donson.
Yeah, I certainly see the benefits of this. Certainly by addressing these particular children, I think we're helping much more than just this group of children, because the better they are able to integrate into kindergarten and beyond, we're going to be helping every student that's in the class with them. And in that sense, I think we're strengthening the whole system, which is very important. So I appreciate your efforts.
I just wanted to say one thing in relation to that. I think, we look at our statistics as a school department and look at maybe the dropout rates or retention rates for children, and you can probably look back when children are kindergarten, first grade, and maybe identify some of those patterns then, or kind of maybe be predicting what might happen. So I think this is really looking, as we've mentioned tonight, really well before kindergarten, because sometimes time is too late at kindergarten for some families, and you really need to outreach early and do these things so that it will build a stronger school system. It's sometimes too late to look at 11th grade and say, oh goodness, what did we do? Really looking at what do we do now to prepare for that. So I just wanted to reiterate that in terms of looking at data, and it's really important to look really at a young age. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the report? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you very much for coming, and at this point, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the master planning process. Mr. Bakey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and the city manager. We appreciate the opportunity to present the first couple of products of the master planning process for the city this evening, which are the report of all of the public opinion research that we've conducted over the last several months, as well as the report that summarizes a lot of data around the existing conditions in the city. As I think many of you will recall, the master plan update is being done as both a master plan an update to the 2003 master plan, but also a sustainability plan for the city. And we sincerely appreciate the City Council's motions to support both of those efforts and ask us to move ahead with them. And we obviously appreciate the opportunity to give you this update this evening. We've got a number of things we're going to talk about tonight. I'm joined this evening by Allegra Williams, our neighborhood planner, and Aaron Clausen, our associate planner, who've really been the project managers and leaders of this project. Allegra will be presenting the public opinion research material, and Aaron will be presenting the existing conditions data on the project. In addition to Aaron and Allegra, numerous DPD staff, as well as staff of a lot of other departments, have participated in bringing us to this stage, and will continue to participate as we move ahead with the project. This is an update to the 2003 master plan that we completed. Many of the members of this council supported that plan back in 2003. And many of you will recall that that plan led to a lot of pretty significant changes with respect to development in the city. The master plan itself provides basically for a shared community vision around issues of economic development, community development, and social development in the city. And it's important to have that sort of guidepost for a lot of the little decisions that get made, whether they be neighborhood planning projects or which grants to apply for and so forth, to be able to fit them into a larger whole and see how they are logical steps toward the larger vision of the city, or determine that they are inconsistent with that larger vision and won't take us there is really pretty critical for the work that we do. The 2003 master plan identified a number of goals for the city that were the focus of the way the plan was organized. This one will mirror many of those same goals and objectives, but we'll put a much greater emphasis on the last goal, which was sustainability. Back in 2003, it was a relatively novel concept to incorporate that. Now I think it's really critical as we think about it, both in terms of environmental sustainability, but also in terms of economic sustainability going forward. This planning process to get here this evening has involved quite a number of efforts on the part of city staff and a tremendous number of folks from the community to get us even to this point in the process. Following the presentations this evening of the existing material, we will be going back and working on developing a draft plan, which we hope in the coming months we'll have the opportunity to come and present to the council and then present out into the community as well to basically, it will hopefully be a reflection of what we've heard through the public opinion research process. And we will also use the process of presenting that draft plan to make sure that we've got it right, so that we can then refine that and make sure it truly is reflective of the community's vision. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for it just to be the DPD's vision or anyone else's. And then we expect several months after that process, several months of that process, and at the conclusion of that process, we'd be back before the council again with a final document that we would hope that you'll be able to endorse. And we hope that whole process will be complete by the end of this calendar year. So with that, I will turn it over to Allegra to talk through the public opinion process.
So I just want to reiterate, as Adam mentioned, that this really has been a tremendously collaborative process, both within the planning department, but also with other city departments. And I think to the benefit of the city as a whole. I'm going to just go quickly through sort of the process that we used starting last spring and into the summer. We had three major components of the public participation process. The first was a telephone survey. We worked with a consultant, Research America Incorporated, and it was a survey that we had used in developing the original 2003 master plan. It was very similar. Representative sample of the city, and we reached 800 heads of households, so people 25 years of age and above. The second approach was to conduct a series of 5 visioning sessions. We had those translated. They were at the Senior Center last summer on a variety of different topics, and those were facilitated by staff in the planning department. And then the third was a more unusual approach. We worked in collaboration with Emerson College, who had developed a tool called Community Planet, which is a participatory planning tool to engage younger residents, maybe who didn't feel comfortable necessarily going to a public meeting with other people in the city. So we reached out to 6 local youth organizations, and they opened their computer labs. We had over 60 youth participate and over 175 people participate in using that tool over about a week and a half period last summer. So just kind of quickly, we really sought to be very inclusive, again, reach out to as diverse a sample of the population as possible, and did everything from flyering in business districts to email flyers to posting things on Facebook to get the word out about the process. Just some broad trends across the public opinion data. Not surprisingly, given the drop in housing sale prices and the changes in the unemployment rate, there was a shift in sort of interest from affordable housing to job creation. We also heard a lot from people about an interest in bike amenities, pedestrian amenities, and also increased use of technology, communication with the city as a way to build a sense of pride. So I'm just going to go through sort of the 3 different, through the survey data first. We, again, had a very representative sample of the city participate by neighborhood, ethnicity, income. We asked people to rate the city in terms of their satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10, and we found that older residents tended to be a little bit more satisfied with the city than younger residents, and also several of the neighborhoods that had participated and benefited from the city manager's neighborhood impact initiative tended to also rate the city higher than some of the other neighborhoods. So we thought that was important to note. We also asked through the survey for participants to rank 14 different characteristics, so recreation, public safety, cost of living, and found that the majority in 2011 and 2002, the same characteristics tended to be ranked most highly, as you can see from this chart. There was a little bit of fluctuation in terms of cost of living and city services becoming a little bit more of a priority, but overall these same 6 characteristics were the main priorities. And we also had 40 different civic items that were rated in terms of performance. And these are, again, very similarly high ratings as from the 2002 survey in this case. These are some of the civic items that were rated a little bit less favorably. Obviously, job opportunities, but more surprisingly, perhaps, pedestrian and bike amenities. Again, the need for increasing opportunities to bike through the city and to walk. And just some more of the highlights from the performance rankings. Caucasians tended to feel more comfortable, a better sense of being able to participate civically in the city. The downtown neighborhood, not surprisingly, rated recycling a bit lower than other neighborhoods had. So those are just a couple of the highlights. And then finally in the survey, we asked participants to sort of determine if, when given trade-offs that the city would have to make, how they would, what they would rather see. And these were very similar to the questions that were asked in the 2002 survey as well. So it's a way to compare again. In this case, controlling tax increases was clearly very important. Mobility and moving through the city quickly versus, again, bike and pedestrian amenities. Having a variety of housing options versus creating more parks or open spaces in the city. Again, in this case, the priority was to create more open spaces. Looking at sort of beautifying the neighborhoods versus beautifying downtown. The priority was to focus on neighborhoods, though it was a bit closer than it was in 2002. In terms of different types of recreational amenities, there was quite a shift in this case from the original survey in terms of prioritizing open spaces for trails, whereas that had been actually the lowest priority originally. And then neighborhood character issues versus private property rights. Again, neighborhood character, as Adam mentioned, was something that we heard quite a bit and fed into the development of the original plan, still is quite important to residents. Job creation, obviously a priority even at the sort of encroachment of development into the city's neighborhoods. And then we added a couple of new trade-off questions. One was, focusing more on local businesses versus national companies, and there was quite a bit of support to help local small businesses. And then finally, it's environmental considerations, prioritizing renewable energy or other policies that might, in the shorter term, be a little bit more of a cost, but in the longer term would be beneficial to the city. So now shifting into the visioning sessions and some of what we heard. Again, I think, as was the case for the 2003 plan, providing a lifetime of housing opportunities continues to be very important to Lowellians. There's a need for student housing, there's a need for elderly housing, and everything in between. The second visioning session was on transportation and mobility, and again, we heard quite a bit about, the public transportation system, about bikes, bike lanes, pedestrian improvements. Open space and natural resources was our third. It was interesting how across all of these meetings, one thing that kept coming up was the need for trees. Sort of the beautification value, the environmental values of them, and relation to stormwater management. The other main thing that came up in this this visioning session was recreational programming and looking to see that expanded. Oops. In thinking about, as Greg mentioned earlier, actually, the transformation of Lowell into more of a college town, thinking about ways of partnering more with the university, sort of anticipating their development, and thinking about shared workspace, entrepreneurship, and innovation were some of the themes from the Economic Development and Institutional Partnerships meeting. And then the final meeting was on community character and engagement, and some of the themes were, again, using technology more to increase engagement of residents, broadening ways for people to participate, and improving marketing. And so you can sort of get a sense from this of the participatory tool. There was ways for, it's a very similar format to Facebook, where you log on, create an account for free with your email, and then there will be questions about, where would you like to see a community garden? And you can literally put on a map where you would like to see the garden and write a little comment, sort of comment back and forth on a blog. And so there were, again, over 175 residents who were engaged using this tool over a period of about a week and a half. And I think with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron Clausen.
Thank you. So I'm just going to review some of the highlights of what we call an existing condition analysis. And what you look at as a community with this analysis is really a lot of the available data and statistics that provide a snapshot of what are the current conditions that we're dealing with in the community. There's a lot of research that's done into this, so I don't want to even remotely get close to all of the information we collected for this. But for demographics, some of the highlights include a large increase in the ethnic populations of the city, up from 24% in 1990 to 47%. It's a huge increase, and I think this shows that the city continues to be welcoming to the immigrant populations, and is truly a gateway community, gateway city for the state of Massachusetts. The two ethnic groups that grew the most may not be surprisingly be the Asian community and the Hispanic community. The one ethnic group or race as the Census Bureau defines it, that did decline over that time was white or Caucasian. It was down from 82% to 53%. Again, aging population, this is actually kind of in line with the rest of the state and the country. However, the city of Lowell actually grew a little bit older at a slower pace than the state. We went from 14% to 19% between 1990 and 2010 with the age cohort between 15 and 69. That is a slightly slower pace than the state, as I mentioned. And I think one of the more striking pieces of information that we were able to gather, and I think viscerally we kind of saw this happen going on downtown, was a dramatic increase in the population downtown. The population grew by 35%, and that 35% actually was similar or equated to the same amount of total population growth in the city, meaning there was approximately 1,000, 1,200 new residents in the city between 2010 and between 2000 and 2010. That same amount of population ended up in downtown. I think it's a striking piece of information. Similarly, there's a 500% increase in the population downtown between 1970 and 2010. So we're seeing a dramatic increase in that district. Pardon me while I'm working through this. Some of the highlights of that land use analysis that we did is we conducted a land use analysis using Mass GIS data. It's data that's collected through an orthophoto. And we used this because it provided us with trending analysis between the different kind of peer communities and communities surrounding us. And one of the, I think, key elements that came out of this, even though the data is a little bit older, it's from 2005 and is digitized from an aerial photograph. We did find that 48% of Lowell is dedicated for residential use primarily, and that's higher than most of our peer communities, including Worcester, Springfield, Lawrence. In 2004, another highlight, we discussed this a little bit already, the master plan update happened in 2003, 2004, a comprehensive rewrite of the zoning code was implemented and approved by the city council. And it was designed to align better with the goals and objectives of the master plan in 2002. And some of the key elements of that, I think, are one, it went to a transect strategy, and that looks at the neighborhood context, the character of each neighborhood, and creates zoning districts based on the form of those neighborhoods on a continuum from suburban kind of character to an urban character. So the whole concept was to first allow redevelopment in the neighborhoods that was in line to the context of those neighborhoods, but also prevent infill that didn't necessarily fit with that context. Along with some of those changes were higher requirements for usable open space, density requirements for the residential districts, as well as an increase in parking requirements. Some other enhancements with the zoning change include the downtown overlay zoning district, allowing greater densities in the downtown, and then ultimately that Hamilton Canal District, the form-based code, which is a more pure form-based code, which again really focuses on the form, scale, and the urbanism of the district rather than the use. It adds a little bit more flexibility to that. And I think the number of units that we saw, the total number increase in population units in the downtown kind of bear out that change in the zoning regulations. So another integral part of doing existing conditions analysis is to look at what we call the build out. And this looks at what is the potential build out for residential units in the city based on regulatory requirements, as well as taking into account natural or environmental barriers, such as you can't build in a river. And what we found in that analysis, we kind of worked with what was done in 2002, which isn't the traditional kind of build-out analysis. They typically only look at development in greenfield areas. So they're just looking at, we have a parcel of land here that's a farm, we can fit 20 buildings here. We don't have that kind of context, though we have to look at it a little bit more, with a little bit more nuance. So we also looked at infill development and development on underutilized lots, and took into account some of the zoning changes that I already discussed, including one that is the redevelopment of historic buildings, churches, firehouses, we have a provision in our zoning code, as you know, or likely know, that allows us to preserve these historic structures for residential uses. So we kind of reworked our existing conditions build-out analysis and determined that there's potential for 5,715 new dwelling units or 12,000 residents in the city. And this is based on assumptions on what we can get to based on our current zoning regulations. What you can see in the map is, by far, most of those units are going to be going in the downtown area or neighborhoods right adjacent to it. Downtown itself, it would likely increase about 150% in terms of population at build-out. So this, again, I think reflects some of those changes in '04 and some subsequent amendments to the zoning code, where it's really focusing development and residential development in the core areas where there's a lot of services, there's mixed uses, there's access to transit. It gives us a sense also of not just where development's going to happen, but what are the impacts on city services, such as water, sewer, schools, transportation. So for transportation, one of the things that was kind of surprising to me, frankly, was the commute to work data. We actually, the number of single occupancy vehicles commuting to work increased. Every other mode of transportation, including biking, walking, taking the bus to work or the train into Boston, decreased. So that means that over the period of time between 2000 and 2010, more people are actually driving their cars to work. The one other exception to that was there are a slight increase in the number of people working out of their house. Since 2002, we have a new garage downtown, as you all know, that has increased the total number of parking spaces in the downtown in garages to over 5,000, and there's approximately 610 parking spaces on street. The other key element to that is, between that time, there was a parking deficit of 6% in the 2002 existing conditions. We've now flipped that and created a parking surplus of 12%. And this has to do with kind of a demand management program, the increase in residential uses downtown, so a better mix and better utilization of those parking spaces. The one other thing that we did find is that there was, due to some of this redevelopment happening that we're seeing downtown and development around the university, doing a volume to capacity ratio of the street networks, and this basically measures 1 hour trips at the peak hour of the day on roadways and compares it to the actual capacity, the lanes, the space for the cars to fit, whether or not they're at capacity or not. There were three segments that were at or over capacity. 2 of them were downtown at the Thorndike and Dutton Street corridor. The other was School Street near the O'Donnell Bridge. So you're seeing, because of some of this redevelopment downtown and near the universities, some impact on transportation. The one key piece of this to keep in mind, though, is volume to capacity ratio isn't exactly a proxy for congestion. There are a lot of other variables that go into causing traffic slowings. It's just signalization, poor coordination between signals, number of turning movements onto or off of a street. So this is just measuring a piece of that picture. But it was informative to see that there was an increase around this area. In other areas of the city, there is also a reduction. And then also 40% of the roads in the city are in need of structural or base improvements, so almost a reconstruction of the street. So there's a lot of need to repair the streets. Some of this won't be news. Economic downturn. We have had a high unemployment rate, 10.8% compared to 2000, a 3% rate. That's pretty similar to the rest of the state. In 2010, there was about 8.5% unemployment rate in the U.S. At the time, it was 9.5. So we're kind of in the range, and hopefully we'll see that improving over the last year and into the future. There's been a shift from manufacturing to technology and industrial, educational industries. The two highest employment centers, employers in the city are LGH and UMass Lowell. A lot of the job losses actually were occurring in the more suburban areas around the city, where you would have large layoffs in places like Lucent Technologies in Westford, I believe, and so a lot of those loss in jobs actually weren't happening in Lowell. There are a lot of the residents in Lowell employed in the suburbs around us, so that was impacting us heavily. Some big changes that we're seeing now that I think are important variables for us to consider as we're moving forward in the master plan update is the kind of shift in UMass Lowell in the major investments that are happening, obviously the emerging technology center, but also a greater focus on the downtown, which is beneficial for some of the objectives that we're trying to reach there. A lot of items here, but as far as arts and history and culture, I think what we're seeing is a continuation of a lot of the efforts that have been going on in the city for a long time, and building off of, I think what we've begun at the within the historic district in the national park. We saw 3 million tourists visit annually. We're seeing 3 million tourists visit, coming in, taking part in the cultural activities with 209 festivals, 23 museum and galleries, 14 performance spaces. So we're an expanding network of cultural entities and events. Recently we had the Appleton Mills and Western Avenue Lofts provide us with more live-work space, up to 400 units, included with both of those, as well as some other developments downtown. We're seeing more partnerships in building that creative and cultural economy, but it's also providing, what we're finding here is it's providing an amenity for residents, a place to partake or consume art and culture, but also participate as a way to express themselves through arts and culture, which is, I think, a great quality of life benefit for the residents. We're starting to see some of these events and some of these activities kind of expand out of the downtown recently with some of the efforts through the Manager's Neighborhood Initiative with Cambodia Town. Just trying to highlight some of the broader cultures that are going on here, which is an incredible asset that the city has. Again, this first bullet related to housing is probably something everybody's very familiar with, and that was the housing boom and then bust. You can see that the median home sale price was $140,000 in Lowell in 2000, and then went up to $274,000 in 2005, then back down to $185,000 in 2009. So there's a boom and bust cycle there, but you can see that there is over time a gradual and steady increase. Another, I think, unique and critical element with the city's housing stock is that over 50% of it was built prior to 1940. That does present challenges, but at the same time, there's opportunities, and we'll get into this maybe a little bit later, and as far as energy efficiency, ways to upgrade these homes and really help residents with those bills and the result emissions and pollution that comes from generating that energy. Again, I don't want to belabor the point on downtown, but there was a dramatic increase in market rate housing downtown. We've estimated over 3,000 new units have been brought downtown. Of those units that were already there, no units have been displaced of the affordable restricted units. So there's been this increase in housing and resident population, really bringing, I think, a lot of vitality downtown, but it hasn't come at the expense of lower income families or residents. Is a very important point. And then we're also seeing a dramatic increase of student population between 2007 and 2010. Open space. There's about 13.3 acres of new public open space dedicated between the last existing conditions report, which was 02, and now. 10 new parks dedicated. There's a total of 471 acres, so it gives you a sense of what that means in terms of access to open space and recreation. I think what's probably very evident to most people in here, but what's important to realize is that of those 471 acres, a lot of it is located in the state forest and is cemeteries. So there's still a great need for more recreational opportunities in the community, in the neighborhoods. There's been a lot of improvements also implemented in existing parks through the Managers Initiative, including Clemente recently, McPherson, Shed Park, all have gone through some pretty dramatic changes. Also, you'll see here there's been an extension and repair of the canal walkway system, and then we've begun the Concord River Greenway, which will be eventually 2,700 linear feet. It's basically a linear park connecting multiple neighborhoods in the city. So this is a new element in 2002. Greenhouse gas inventories weren't very much part of the lexicon in planning. This is a piece of that we're adding to the master plan update, and Adam had mentioned it. We're looking at it from a more sustainability perspective. One of those elements that we need to bring into the process is looking at greenhouse gas emissions and the impacts on air quality for Lowell residents. And so what you're seeing here is our inventory conducted in late 2009, 2010, and it's basically reporting a base year of fiscal year 2008. And what we found was citywide there was over 1 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. That includes carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane. Those are the 3 key greenhouse gas emitting gases that are emitted that cause climate change. Then the number 1 sector in that analysis turned out to be residential housing at 33%. Number 2 is transportation at 31%. But if you combine all buildings in the city, it was you're looking at 67% of all emissions come from buildings. Only 2% is solid waste, and that includes basically the hauling of recycling solid waste and then some emissions from the capped landfill. One other item to keep in mind is if we looked at this inventory and there was kind of a no action taken to reduce these emissions, we would see an increase of another 100,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions by 2025, and that does include, the kind of intrinsic improvements through increased mileage rates for vehicles. So if we're not doing anything about it, we're going to see a lot more emissions, greenhouse gas emissions through activities in the city. We've seen some recent improvements, fairly dramatic improvements in our solid waste and recycling program, going from 45,000 tons to 30,000 tons of solid waste hauled away, and then there's an inverse increase proportional to that for recycling. Water and wastewater, again, I think this is a fairly well-known phenomenon to most people in the room here, that the city of Lowell, we suffer from CSO, the combined sewer issue. There's been a lot of work that's been done. Over $90 million has been spent to improve and reduce the amount of these overflow elements or events, I should say. If you can see the map on the top, it shows the phase 1 areas where a lot of the separation was done. As a part of that $90 million, there was also a lot of improvements made actually at Duck Island itself. We're going to be looking at in the update and the next steps other ways that we can look at reducing those CSO through infiltrating stormwater into the ground. It's a way to beautify the neighborhood and deal with stormwater in a more holistic way. one important note there, which I think is worth pointing out, is that the Merrimack River is safe for swimming and drinking. So that's a quick run through of the highlights. As Adam kind of ran through the next steps, we will be taking all this information, sifting through it, and building a vision based on mostly what we heard from the folks in the surveys, in the visioning sessions, and then also the online tool, and and taking that and working it for the next 20, 25 years. We should have a draft by late spring, hopefully, and then a final plan summer, late summer, probably more like fall of 2012.
Thank you. Mr. Bakey.
Just wanted to add one final note, which is that there was an awful lot of information presented this evening, and some of it very quickly, so I have no doubt that not everyone was able to catch all of that. The complete documents that this is only a synopsis of are actually available on the city's website, so anyone who's got access to the web can take a look at those at any time via the city's website. Happy to help address any or answer any questions that members of the council may have about the work so far or what the next steps may be.
Councilor Kennedy.
And you may have the answer, you may not have the answer, but anyways, under the existing conditions part, there was a panel where you, the highlights included that there was a potential for 5,700 more dwelling units.
Yes.
12,000 and something, 12,360 people. Those dwelling units, are you saying that that's the maximum, that at 5,700 more, there's no more dwelling units and that would fit in the city? Is that essentially what that means?
To some degree. What that actually means is a build-out analysis takes into account all of the existing land use regulations in the city, and looks at all of the land in the city, as well as buildings and other properties that can be redeveloped, and calculates that under the existing regulatory regime, what would be the maximum development that could occur in the city. And that's what these numbers yield. It is highly unlikely that this will be exactly what will happen, even if we made no changes or did nothing, but this is essentially the maximum possible under the current rules. When we did the same exercise a few years ago with the first master plan, we yielded much larger numbers, but it was also important to realize that the places where the potential development could have occurred prior to the zoning changes that were done by the council in 2004 were radically different than where we would now see the growth and development.
Okay, so basically it's a yes answer, right?
Fair enough.
Okay. Well, it's an exact number. You've got, 5,715. It's not 16 or 17. It's an exact number. I just wondered where it came from. The increased traffic volume, do you intend to address that in the master plan? And what do you expect to do? Or what are your thoughts on how that's going to be taken care of?
Well, the master plan will definitely touch on traffic and look at traffic impacts. I think there's probably a couple of different ways that will be looked at, both in terms of what can be done to improve the existing traffic infrastructure in areas where we're seeing a lot of growth, but also how we can encourage alternate uses or alternate transportation modes, because there is a limit in a mostly built-out city to how much we can expand the existing transportation infrastructure, but absolutely we will be looking at that.
Okay. And with ideas on what to do?
There certainly will be some ideas, absolutely.
Yep. Okay. And also, the existing conditions indicates that 40% of the roads need structural improvements. How'd you arrive at that? How'd you get that?
That actually came from the city engineer's office. They have actually conducted a pretty extensive analysis of the conditions of the existing roadway, streets and sidewalks in the city, identifying the level of work that all of them need and trying to put some numbers attached to that, and that's where that data comes from.
And when you say that in the same panel, 73% commuted to work alone in 2000, now it's 79%, is that just based on that 800 sample?
No, that's actually U.S. Census data.
Okay. the existing conditions for housing. One of the bullets says that the UMass Lowell student population has increased 20% in the past 4 years. But 2/3 currently live in Lowell. What does that mean? People who just live at home? Is that what you're counting? Like,
No, the university's student population breaks up almost on a sort of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 basis. About 1/3 of them live on campus, which is generally in Lowell, and about 1/3 of them live in other locations in Lowell. The other 1/3 commute from outside of the city to campus.
right, but the 1/3 that lives in other locations in Lowell, where do they, I mean, Chancellor Meehan was here just a few weeks ago, and his number for the amount of students living in Lowell was way lower than 2/3. So
Well, these are
I'm
numbers
wondering
we obtained
if
from
what you're-
them.
I'm wondering if you're counting students whose families are from Lowell, and so they just live at home and they just happen to go to Lowell, but they live in the house they grew up in.
Oh, those would definitely count among the students who live off campus, but in Lowell, absolutely. Absolutely, and that may be where the discrepancy lies.
And, well, it maybe almost does it for me. I think I had one other thing, but I don't seem to be able to find it now, so I'll just wait. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie and then Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the most significant growth areas, you have downtown, in the acre. Where in the acre would you look for more growth?
Interestingly, if you look at the grayscale shading on this map, the areas that are the darkest are the areas where there's the greatest potential under our current regulations for growth. And the darkest area of the acre is the acre urban renewal plan area, where there still are a lot of portions of that urban renewal area where additional housing is possible on either vacant or severely underutilized properties in that area.
Okay. I also noticed downtown, I think that speaks for itself. What about Pawtuckaville?
Well, Pawtuckaville is somewhat unique in Lowell in that it is probably the one part of the city that is similar to many more suburban communities in that there still is truly undeveloped land that can be built out in Pawtuckaville, and that's the reason that part of Pawtuckaville ends up with the potential for growth. I think it's really critical for folks to realize, however, that I think of that 5,700 potential dwelling units, something like half of it would be in the downtown census tract. So it's a pretty, even the grayer areas, it's still a pretty small number of additional housing units that can be built in those areas.
When it comes to growth in downtown, I think it was 12% parking. There's surplus of 12% in the parking.
Yep.
When is that going to be really taken up? When you look at the jam plan now, I think we're going to be short spaces probably within the next 4 or 5 years.
Well, that will be an interesting problem to have. There is a fair amount of development that's planned in the jam area, and there's no question that the early garage, at this point there is no question the early garage will reach capacity in the relatively near future. Fortunately, the Hamilton Canal District project actually calls for the construction of an additional garage, and until that's possible, we have actually already constructed, the developer has already constructed a temporary surface parking lot in that district, which will provide for absorbing some of that additional parking demand in that part of the city until such time as that second garage can be built.
Okay, great. And just two other questions. With the growth going on in the city, when will the city services be strained? There's going to be a point where, as Lowell continues to grow, whether it's parking, water, storage, there's going to be a strain on the city services. Is there any estimate when that will be?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. I think fortunately, while these seem like large numbers, the 5,000 housing units and the 12,000 additional residents, it does appear that our basic infrastructure, particularly water and wastewater, have the capacity to absorb the additional demands that are going to be placed on those systems by these users. However, there is going to be a continued need to address regular maintenance and upkeep and so forth of those facilities to make sure that they don't lose capacity as a result of deferred maintenance. I think that's the bigger question with respect to those types of infrastructure facilities. And the same really applies to the streets and sidewalks and other components of the city.
Right. And my last question, when we looked at the changes in Lowell, less demand for schools, more demand for trails and bikes and bike paths, I guess the 55 and older age bracket has grown. What about the under 30? Has there been a large increase? When I'm looking at the needs of the city and what people are looking for, it seems like it's either the 55 and older crowd or the probably 30 or 35 and under crowd. Is that possible?
Well, I think you're correct that those are the largest growth areas of the city. And there's been but Lowell is somewhat unusual, as I think was pointed out by Aaron. Lowell is somewhat unusual relative to other communities in Massachusetts in that we are generally not as old as those other communities. And I think that's a product of a lot of our immigrant populations that came into the city in large numbers in the 80s at very young ages. And as they're now forming a kind of large cohort that's moving through Lowell, through various age brackets in Lowell, that puts us in a very different place than a lot of the other communities in Massachusetts that are becoming very heavy on the much older population compared to past times.
No, I agree. When you look at where the money's going to be directed in the next couple of years, that would be a large question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you answered this, but did you say the demographic data came from the census?
It did indeed. We're still waiting for the socioeconomic data to be released, hopefully later this spring, from the 2010 census. But the basic demographic data does come from the 2010 census.
I mean, this is remarkable, I think. It's in 1990, 24% non-white population to now virtually half. That presents all sorts of challenges, as we heard earlier in the evening, with language barriers in the schools and things. So that's really eye-opening to me. But you know, I was a participant in the master plan process. I think out of that grew certainly some very significant zoning changes. And as Mr. Bakey said, I don't think we foresee this time, but I think those changes that were implemented as a result of that process certainly leave the city better than it otherwise would have been. And if this process, you know, of course, the number one issue in everybody's minds is economic development, job creation, and I'm confident that this process will hopefully have some results to yield in that area, just as the first process that most of us participated in yielded in the zoning area. So thanks for the work on this, all of you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank everybody as well, Mr. Backey and the rest of the presenters and the folks that put all this data together. I look forward to the final product in late summer, early fall, and it'll be interesting to see how we can use some of this. I too found some interesting numbers here that in shifts, and be interesting to see how we can use these as we plan going forward. So I look forward to that. Thank you. But great job, and thank you to everybody that participated. It's nice to get the input from the residents, and it's their plan, so it's good that they're participating. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. Adam, the growth in Asian populations from 24% in 1990 to 47% in 2010. Where are those growths in Asian population? Where do they shelter location-wise in the city?
Well, just one clarification: those numbers are for for all minority populations together combined. That's not all Asian, but
those Hispanic and Asian and Hispanic.
Exactly, and African and others as well.
With the growth in Asian populations, and where are they really concentrated beside the Lower Highland?
Well, I think one of the really interesting things that's happened over the last 2 census cycles in particular is that many of those minority populations have actually become less concentrated in the city. And we've actually started to see significant minority populations in almost all neighborhoods of the city, which was absolutely not the case a few censuses ago, where the minority populations were heavily concentrated in a few neighborhoods at that time.
You indicated that the 2003 master plan, that was the involvement of the communities. What's the level of involvement in those plans in 2003, and what do you hope the involvement will be in 2012, this master plan of 2012?
Well, again, as I think Allegra has really done a phenomenal job really reaching out to the communities and getting both a broad level of participation through things like the 800 household telephone survey that was conducted in 4 languages that's feeding a lot of the data into this, but also a deep level of understanding of communities' concerns and interests through some of the other exercises like the online Community Planet tool and some of those vision sessions that a number of our DPD staff people did a great job with last summer as a way of really engaging people and having the ability to have a more of a conversation and really get to the heart of some of these issues. You know, the telephone survey reaches a lot of people, but you have a limited amount of depth you can have in that discussion. And the complement is similar to the model that we used in 2003. At that time, I think we had a 1,000 household telephone survey, and we did a series of various kinds of town meeting type engagement sessions with the public. So we're mirroring that process, which seemed to have been quite successful at involving a lot of people and really getting us to a place where I certainly think that we felt, and I get the sense that the City Council, which was instrumental in that process as well, felt that we really had, this plan represented the community's vision, not simply the city government's vision.
Thank you. The other things that I'd like to know is that from your observations, what are some of the significant changes that have occurred since 2003 from the master plan 2003?
Well, I think a lot of the things that were touched on in this presentation certainly fall into that category. A couple of certainly the really big ones has been the cycle of the housing market and the cycle of the employment markets, I guess, or situation, which really are national trends that we're experiencing here locally. And the way they have played out in Lowell, I think informs a lot about what has happened over the last decade. I think we've been able to be ahead of some of the positive trends, and as a result, I think we have, as a city, fared better than we otherwise would have in those cycles. For example, on the housing front, I think this city was really at the forefront of anticipating the return to sort of urban living among a much broader cross-section of the population, and was able to put in place make the right kinds of decisions and put in place the steps and the processes that would facilitate the absorbing a lot of that housing development in the first part of the last decade into the downtown. If we had been a little later to the party, I think by the time we put things in place, that trend might have shifted already with the decline in the housing market. Similarly, with the job market, I think the city's embrace of both higher education and healthcare, which have been 2 of the more stable industries in the current recession, has enabled us to really enjoy a position with respect to employment that is very unusual. And that is, even though the statistics around the unemployment rate of the city have dramatically increased in a manner not dissimilar from the state and the national rates, the actual employment in the city has been stable and actually has slightly increased during the recession. And that's, I think, in part because we have been out in front in terms of which industries have been leading employers in the city, and the growth of both the healthcare and the higher ed industries have really played a key role in that.
I do agree with your idea that in order to make this plan work, it has to get input from the community and DPD together to make it work. So I'm looking forward to working with all the council and you. Thank you, all your staff, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Talking about strange services, we were just talking about healthcare. And as the city grows, and now we're talking about Lowell General taking over Saints Memorial. Is there any look down the road of what type of health care the city's going to need? Will it be adequate? I know it's nothing really we can do unless we work with the state, but there's any questions there?
I think there's quite a number of questions there. I think probably that's a realm that's going to be a little bit beyond the scope of this document and this planning process, but I think some of the work that will come out of both the existing conditions information but also the plan itself may be useful and informative to the folks at Lowell General as they plan around what their, how they plan to operate their facility and continue to grow over the years.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping to hear. And congratulations. That was a great job by you and the staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. There is a lot of good information here, Mr. Bakey, and your staff did a good job putting together this presentation. It certainly addresses some of the concerns and corroborates what I think most of us here get from the constituents in the community. And it's a plan, but what is the next step? You're going to come back. I mean, how do you plan to respond to some of the things? I think what's interesting, some of the positive responses that we got. City preserves his historic places, does a good job in trash removal, et cetera, and that's true. Some of the, and then I look over to the next. I look over to the next chart. The least favorable rankings, not enough jobs, traffic that doesn't move very well, streets and roads and sidewalks not maintained. I mean, it goes down to number 8. Reasonable property taxes. I think many of us know that. How do we address it? How do we, 40% of our roads are in disrepair. We know it all comes down to resources. We know we have to bring up our recycling rates. Neighborhoods, we hear from our neighborhood leaders, they want them more quiet. Are you coming back with a specific, you're going to come back with a plan for the next, I forget, just say 25 to 40 years. What about in the immediate, in the immediate future?
I think there's a little of both to that in terms of immediate steps and long-term steps. This process will yield a document that is not dissimilar to the 2003 comprehensive master plan that I know you were a key partner in making happen, which really provides, again, the vision and then a series of action steps that can be taken to help implement the vision and help bring the city toward that vision. I think you've hit on a really interesting challenge that was identified as a result of the survey we did of residents, and that is they identified a substantial number of things where they want to see improvements. Simultaneously, a lot of the engineering work has demonstrated a lot of places where our infrastructure needs investment. And yet I brought back up the slide about how people feel about paying for any of that. And so I think there's no question that there's going to be a real substantial challenge that we have as we figure out how to meet those needs, but also be respectful of the fact that people want to make sure that they're getting the most cost-effective government they possibly can. I think you really hit on the biggest challenge that we will certainly face. We hope to come back with a draft plan that makes some recommendations around where we should prioritize, and certainly the recommendations that what we will come back with as recommendations really come out of the public opinion research around people identifying 2 things: what's important to them, and what are the things that the city needs to improve the performance of. Those will be the places where we'll really want to try to prioritize. Things that people say are not really all that important, we're going to put a lot less attention, regardless of how well they think we're doing. And things that they say are really important that we're doing really well on is a matter of basically preserving our efforts. So the place where we really need to concentrate is the things that people say are really important, but the city isn't doing as well as people would like to see. And that's really the place where we want to try to focus improvement.
Can I just, there was a couple of things on here I didn't see, and maybe it wasn't framed in a particular question, but code enforcement, police presence, things, was that kind of under the public safety umbrella?
Yeah, well, there's no question that public safety 10 years ago was people's number one priority, and it remains people's number one priority today. That was a result of the survey. I think that is an area where people also feel the city's doing a pretty good job, actually. And so as a result, it kind of falls into that category of important, but one that we're actually doing pretty well on already. And that may be why it wasn't highlighted as much in this presentation as there might be in other cases. But there is a full report of the public opinion data that has all of the additional data about how people felt about the different categories they were asked about. That was provided to the council back in December, and it's also, again, available on the website for folks at home who are interested in getting a little more into some of the data that wasn't summarized in this presentation. As much as we gave you, it's still only a summary.
No, it's good. Thank you.
Further discussion on the report? Councilor Kennedy.
Actually, the Solid Waste and Recycling Office keeps track of that. That's where we obtained that data from them.
Sure, we actually have a report that we just, the stat people just prepared on the recycling based upon that data, so we can get that for you. Mike, to 5 years? This goes back 6 years. We can get that for you next Tuesday.
Pretty much everything you see here, you've seen tonight, is the product of in-house work. The one exception to that is a couple of exceptions. The survey, we had a comparatively small contract compared to what I just heard about from the school department earlier this evening. We spent, I think, about $12,000 to have the survey conducted by a professional firm that knows how to do that. We don't know how to do that. And then, as Allegra pointed out, the online participatory tool, the Community Planet tool, was a partnership between the city and Emerson College. It was basically students and faculty at Emerson College assisted us with that, and I don't believe that was at any cost to the city. So we're doing this on the as best we can, as efficiently as possible with our limited resources as people want us to.
Okay, and as you move along and finish it up, it's no more of it will be outsourced. Everything else is going to be done in.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we're looking at this as an in-house effort going forward.
Okay, and then the final thing that I just wanted to be clear on was the employment part. Part of the presentation indicated that Lowell hasn't lost as many jobs as other people, but that's primarily because Lowell's left with healthcare and education jobs and almost nothing else. And those have been almost recession-proof. But all of the communities outside of Lowell, they've lost jobs because they have other types of industry beyond that too. If you look at unemployment rates, in Lowell's unemployment rate will be higher than any of the surrounding communities by a significant amount.
That's correct. Yeah, there's two ways of measuring employment. And I think they're both important, and they're both very important to the city. The first is really the standard unemployment rate, which basically looks at the people who reside in a community and whether or not they are employed. And you are absolutely correct. Our unemployment rate among our residents is higher than our surrounding towns. The other way of measuring employment is the number of jobs that are located within a specific community. And that's actually the thing that we have, frankly, more control over, to the extent we have any control over either, really. But from an economic development, municipal economic development function, we have more control over building jobs in the city than whether or not our residents are employed in or out of the city. And by that metric, the city of Lowell is actually dramatically outperforming our surrounding towns. In that not only have we maintained jobs through the recession, we've actually grown jobs in the city during the recession. Unfortunately for our residents, many of those jobs are not held by Lowell residents. And the companies or institutions that employ make their own employment decisions, and we can't dictate to them that they have to employ Lowell residents. But that's why there's a dichotomy between the unemployment rates and the fact that employment in the city has actually risen in recent years.
Right. But I'm not sure that outperforming is the term I would use to describe the discrepancy between the city and the communities or jobs inside.
Well, that's obviously your prerogative. I would certainly prefer to have grown than lost jobs significantly, which has been the case in all of our surrounding towns during the recession.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the report? Entertain a motion to accept as a report of progress by Council Broderick, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you for the presentation. Next, we have the goals and objectives of the city manager. Mr. Manager.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and we have handouts going out to the councilors right now of the PowerPoint presentation, and I assure you it's a short PowerPoint presentation on the goals and objectives that I'll have, as well as a handout from a book that hopefully will sort of spell out the terms that we use with regards to goals, objectives, and strategies. That was a discussion that we had at the recent subcommittee meeting that we used to discuss the goals and objectives, or the strategic planning process that we used. The actual book is called Strategic Planning for Local Government, and I've copied a few of the pages for you to help with that. Let me start out by saying that it was interesting, as we, and I'll probably reference back to this a couple more times as I go through the presentation, but it was interesting to have the discussion on the master plan lead into this discussion. There's quite a bit of overlap, obviously, between certainly some of the accomplishments that have been realized over the last several years, the recycling being one of them, and the reduction of trash, going from 45,000 to 30,000 as a response to, or as the result of an effort that we've made to get to that point. Likewise, a number of the investments that have been made in our wastewater and water facilities and so on. Also, I think there's a lot that comes out of the master plan, as I believe Councilor Elliott referenced, with regards to the findings that we were getting from the public. But also they spill over into many of the initiatives that the administration sees as being significant, and based upon the feedback that we received from the councilors, they too, and the one that immediately jumps to mind is the issue of the condition of the roads. That's something that, the city engineer is, I believe it was Councilor Kennedy just mentioned the condition of the roads. Where do we get that number? The city engineer has a very elaborate pavement management system that has been utilized to determine what the overall condition is of the roads in the city. And I think we all realize that, and the significance and the importance of investing money to maintain that infrastructure, as well as our other infrastructure. But if I could, I'll just talk a little bit about what we're going through, and then be happy to answer any questions. Again, I think this is very much a work in progress that we, in process, I guess is the key word there, that we go through, both the City Council as the legislative body as well as the administration, to put together a strategic plan that carries us through a fiscal year and then beyond. I don't know which one of these I'm supposed to be using here. In terms of just terminology, and this goes back to that handout I gave you, the issues, the terms that we use are goals, objectives, and strategies and action items. The goals are generalized statements of where an organization wants to be at some future time. And again, they're more broad and generalized. And then the objectives are the specific measurable targets set for each goal. How do the objectives bring us to the goals? And then the strategy and action items are the steps that the administration actually carries out to which we reach our objectives, the programs, the events, the operations, and the projects that we would utilize in each category. In terms of the roles that all of us play, and that was something too that was discussed at the subcommittee meeting, essentially the goals belong to the city council. The city council is representing the citizens of the city that lay out what our broad goals should be in terms of a city government. So it's primarily, and I'm using this is comes out of a document that I've seen and utilized before. Goals are about 80% generated by the council. I certainly have people in the administration that can add to the perhaps the verbiage that's used in the goals and perhaps provide some type of ideas of how we should be responding as a city government to certain issues and the goals that to tie to that. But very much the goals are what the city council feels are the areas that we should be focusing upon. The objectives are are more shared. How do we get to those goals? And we work together in a form to make those determine what those targets should be and how we're going to get to that end result. And so that's more of a shared responsibility. And then on the flip side, the strategies, and that's what are the actual specific actions that need to be taken to get us to those objectives and then hence to the goals. And that's generally, it's more developed by the administration, by the experts, if you will, in the departments that tie into what the city council is hoping to achieve. So, but that's not to say that there aren't ideas and projects that come out of the work of the city council that we can then utilize to get to those goals. So it's very much generally perceived as being a shared process along those lines. The other part I would say in terms of strategic planning is that there are different variations of it, whether it be top down or bottom up. I think the system that we use, as you'll see when we discuss this, is it's more of a hybrid that uses both, and that's another means of accomplishing this end. We utilize the ideas and thoughts of the department heads and the employees, but clearly the goals are finalized and set by the city council. So it's a process that involves up and down and is shared throughout. I say that because it was a fairly new process that we utilized last year. Many communities are ahead of us with regards to the development of strategic plans, but generally communities more and more see through the years, over the last 20 or so years, have seen the significance of laying out a plan of action to reach certain end results. It was new to the City of Lowell. It was something that we've been talking about since I came on as city manager, and we finally last year were able to put together a very comprehensive document. That document has been handed out to the council and has been referred to and reported on several occasions over the last several months. It's based upon a model that a number of communities that we looked at as a model or an idea of how we wanted it to look, including Albany, New York, Clarksville, Tennessee, Evanston, Illinois, Alexandria, Virginia, and Charlottesville, Virginia, all have documents very similar to ours. It's essentially we basically stole the ideas the format that they had. The process that we used last year in terms of FY11 and 12, the strategic plan, the goals that go with that were established with city council input, and the result was 8 broad goals for the city manager and the city administration to work towards. Those goals were then handed off to the department heads to set up their own departmental goals and objectives that would support what was essentially endorsed and voted upon by the City Council. And that was all compiled into a plan that was accepted by the City Council in 2011, that February of 2011. This was, and this came with great support from the then City Council to have the strategic plan put in place. We provided an update during the budget process. The budget, as you know, is much more robust than it ever has been before, with information and data. So we utilize that budget to give an update on where we are with regards to that strategic plan. And then we delivered a final report to the City Council in late 2011, early 2012, which I've given a report on several occasions now. In terms of how we're going to move forward, or the thought of moving forward for FY13 is that, and this has been based upon the input that we received from councilors directly and indirectly, we would continue with the 8 broad goals that have been laid out, we would identify city council priorities for the time period between July 1st, 2012 and June 30th, 2013, which is FY13. We would work with the department heads to integrate goals and priorities into the department goals, priorities, and performance indicators, once again utilizing the budget to communicate that to the public and utilize it ourselves as a management tool and a way for the city council to review how we're doing. Again, in terms of the process being utilized is the goals and objectives. Once it's all compiled and put into the same format that we utilized last year, laying out the goals, the specific objectives, and then the strategies, that we would distribute that to the City Council sometime before the budget is received, and we're expecting the budget will be in the hands of the City Council by the end of May, the beginning of June. So you'd have that in hand, and then the budget itself would include those goals and objectives, which would then provide backup to the council in terms of the budget levels that we're looking for each one of the departments, as well as the revenue structure. So that would all be included within the budget. We would update the council in the winter, update the council and update the public, and then, of course, the FY14. Because we've moved to a performance-based budget format, the FY14 would tell us budget would tell us how we did with regards to what we set forth in FY13. So along those lines, in terms of each one of the goals, and of course they are, we try to summarize these, and this is based upon direct input that I've received from several councilors, and indirect from the body as a whole, and these are and then of course we're adding to this ideas that department heads have to either implement these items or add to these particular objectives, in the notion that it is a shared process of putting the objectives together, relying upon the department heads. The first goal, as you may recall, is just categorized as a general government services, as the notion of best practices and having effective government services in general. Along those lines, I've heard quite a bit of input. I did receive input specifically from a councilor that in the preparation of this, but at the subcommittee there was some discussion about this too, that we need to do more with terms of our website, that it's, while at one time the city may have had a very effective website, we need to update that. So we're in agreement. The administration is very much in agreement that website has seen better days and we need to do more with it. That the technology is there. We're utilizing technology in a number of other ways to improve information provided to the citizens as a whole, but the website needs to be refined and changed and improved. And we've looked at some models of a number of communities that we think would be very effective. And so that would certainly be an objective that goes with the notion of government services. Likewise, we've done quite a bit of, particularly in inspectional services, done quite a bit of online capabilities and services. There's more to be done, though, particularly in terms of our financial systems, and we're looking at a number of improvements there. Councilor Rita Mercier has been very vocal of late, in particular, but going back, let's get more notification out to the public. So we see that as an area too that we can do more in terms of government services, and that would be an objective that we would have this year as well, that we would improve that whole process. And then we heard from a couple of councilors on enhancing our performance management capabilities. That in fact the use of data and the use of information is very effective from a management perspective and also from a communication perspective of letting the public know what is happening with their tax dollars and their city government. So we would look to build upon the success that we've already had. Goal number 2 is in finances, and again, this is based upon direct input from a city councilor, integrating our capital and maintenance plans. And I think you heard quite a bit of that with the master plan. Of course, the city really didn't have a capital plan until the last couple of years, and it just needs to be updated on a regular basis, and again, improved and enhanced along the way, but we want to also integrate that with our maintenance. It's not enough just to build facilities, but we have to explain how we're going to maintain those facilities moving forward. And so that's something that would be an objective within the area of finances. Continue to hold the line on taxes. And that too would be, we've made a great bit of progress there, and we need to continue that moving forward. Again, likewise, and that pretty much was across the board, and the administration is again in full support of that, and has been and will continue to be. Settling contracts. This always requires quite a bit of staff time and resources, but we would like to. This was a direct recommendation or idea from a councilor that we should settle our contracts as quickly as possible. But again, in settling those contracts, we want them to be sustainable for the city government moving forward. Plan for enterprise funds, that this is, again, something that we've heard from councilors that we need to, we do have issues there with our enterprises. We're doing well in water and parking in particular, but wastewater remains an issue, and particularly with the CSO work and the upgrades to the plant, that we need to be able to develop a plan and strategy to address that enterprise. Goal number 3, public safety. More proactive prevention efforts. Again, this is a direct result of direct input from a councilor. Likewise, community outreach and the notion of community policing and the idea of smart policing. And I know that this too has been raised by councilors in dealing with the issue of public safety. Goal number 4 is community development, and this ties in very much with the what we just talked about with the master plan. Increasing the transit-oriented affordable housing stock within the city. That you heard is a concept, an idea that the master plan has recognized. Funding the 2 for Lowell and first-time homebuyer program. I think we can guess who gave us that input. Councilor Martin has made this a priority for the administration for the last 6 years, and again, it's in there as an opportunity to increase home ownership within the city. Enhancing recreation amenities and programs, and of course, that too has been one that we've talked to a number of councils about. Councilor Laurie asked at the last meeting that we do some work on that recreation programs, and we will be doing including that with it as an objective. Economic development, and we just Councilor. Sure. Oh, I got carried away. I apologize. You all have it in front of you, and it is on TV. Thank you. I'll hold it in my hand now. Goal number 5 is economic development. The progress on the Hamilton Canal District. We've made substantial progress over the last year, certainly with the opening of the Appleton Mill, but there's more work to be done there, specifically with the Freudenberg building, and we're working with the developer on that, but that too is an objective. We did hear from Councilor Mayor Murphy that the development of neighborhood business districts. So that too is, and that's certainly our neighborhood initiative program that you heard quite a bit from the master plan presentation. That's a priority there as well. Likewise, local entrepreneurship and the notion of helping local businesses in the neighborhoods get started and be sustainable. In terms of Goal 6, and again, it ties in with the presentation you heard first tonight from the school department. Education is an important goal for the city. We've made progress in that area, but more needs to be done. Along those lines, the partnership with UMass Lowell, the preparation of Gateway Cities grants, there's additional money that we anticipate will be coming forward from the Commonwealth for Gateway Cities for education. So we'll be working with the school department on that. Exploring consolidation for some city and school functions, and again, this is something that we've talked about, and we've had some success there, but there is perhaps some more opportunities that we can we can find there. And then in after-school programs, I know the Councilor Noon has raised this and asked us to do some work on this, and that came in the form of a motion, so we've incorporated that within the strategic plan as well. Goal 7, sustainability. This would be, again, this is, as you heard again with the master plan, this has become more of an issue for the city over the last number of years, but particularly in the last 2 or 3 years. Continued progress towards greater environmental sustainability. I think the recycling program is certainly one part of that, but there's far more. We've done quite a bit in terms of energy improvements across the city, but in general, we need to make the city more sustainable, and that would be a goal as well, or excuse me, an objective that goes with that goal, and the energy efficiency opportunities. And we've done a lot with, again, working with the Department of Energy, the EPA, our own Amoresco project, and not only for city government, but also for the businesses in the city as well as the residential. Goal 8 is infrastructure, and again, this goes to an issue that I believe it was Councilor Elliott or Councilor Kennedy that just was asking about the condition of our roadways, and I know that a number of councilors, including Councilman Dancer and Mercier, have spoken to the issue of accepted streets, and that too would be incorporated, and there is quite a bit of work that needs to be done there, and I think we all recognize that. Likewise, improving our other facilities. This ties in certainly with the capital plan, and then the alternative transportation infrastructure. Again, this comes out of specific feedback that we received from the council. So those are the 8 goals and the objectives that we've heard that we've incorporated within this at this point. But again, we're working with the departments on further objectives, development of objectives, as well as then the strategies of how we will make those things happen. And as we work with the council over the course of the next couple of months, I anticipate that we'll get some feedback along those lines as well. And the last slide that I just wanted to show, and for the people here in the audience, they probably can't read this, and councilors have this in front of them, and I'm sure it's for the TV audience, it's probably difficult as well, but this just gives some sense of how all of these goals and objectives, performance indicators by department are meshed together, and the type of indicator that we use, whether it be a goal or an output or efficiency measure or an outcome, a workload measure, there's a number of different ways we can track what we're doing, and we think that there's some good time-related data going back to 2008 that we can tie to show progress and what our goal would be for the upcoming year, and how it then ties into the actual one of the 8 goals that we've established. So this is really designed to give you an update of where we are based upon the information that we've received from councilors, and then of course we took some liberty in taking other ideas that have been generated at council meetings to incorporate within this document. I'll be happy to take questions and comments.
Councilor Kennedy?
Goal number 2.
Yes.
I'm happy to see hold the line on taxes as in one of the goals for goal number 2. Local, the goal number 5, the progress on the Hamilton Canal District. I think that should be changed or expanded to include the whole GM area. The Hamilton Canal District, I understand what's going on in there, but when you dissect it, there's not a lot going on, and there probably isn't going to be a lot going on in the short term. But I do think that there are opportunities in the whole GM area that if we're focusing on the Hamilton Canal District that we're ignoring and that we shouldn't ignore. So I'd like to see that change from just Hamilton Canal District to the whole GM area, which also includes the Hamilton Canal project.
I'd be happy to do that. I think that makes sense.
And then in goal number 8 in infrastructure, the 3 items that you've listed are fine, but I'd really like for the city and the Division of Planning and Development to spend some time looking at potential ways of bringing the connector closer to the downtown, of improving the traffic flow. The traffic flow in the city is really, really tough. I think in the prior presentation, we had a lot of streets that were at capacity. The downtown's at capacity. I've heard Chancellor Meehan talk about how difficult it is because at the university because of traffic and getting people from the highway to the university. It's a problem, and it's a problem for the whole city. It's a problem for the downtown, but it also stunts potential for economic development. So, it could be that after taking a good look at it, that the city council will be faced with making some bold decisions. But I really think that that's critical. And so I'd like to see that improved as part of goal number 8.
That's, if I may, actually it ties to, Councilor Elliott made a motion towards the end of the last term that we're still working on it. We haven't included here, but I think it makes sense to include it. We do have a traffic group that's working on a regular basis. Mr. Marchand's working to develop or come up with that plan. So we can, I think that makes sense to include in that. And I think the idea of the connector, that is a stumbling block for the city, in no matter which way you come in, whether you go to the end and take a left down Gorham or you swing around onto Thorndike. It needs a very bold proposal.
Yes.
And I think that we should certainly include that as well, so I concur with that.
Okay, I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the handout and the work and the effort that went into it. Just to clarify now going forward, so you've received some input, you'll probably continue to get some, and I know you're taking input you receive on a weekly basis as well. And that's going to be brought forward to us in draft form prior to the budget.
Correct. It'll be right. It'll be including. It'll be essentially the document you received last year in February. You'll get that before the budget, so that you can then tie that into the budget when that's presented to you.
Okay.
Correct.
So we'll get in more detailed form as we did last time, and then that document is going to be incorporated into the budget, or
the information will be incorporated into the budget.
That's what I mean.
Correct.
But in the appropriate sections.
Correct.
So we'll see it, and we'll actually ourselves and the residents will see where the goals are under each topic, if you will, in the measurement.
Correct. Similar to what you received in the fiscal year 12 budget. Correct.
Excellent. Thank you. That's what I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the areas I was looking at, if we've received it yet, I might have forgotten, is the bridges. A report on the update on the bridges in the city.
We actually have the bridge inventory complete, and we'll be getting that to the council, and then we can probably set up some type of. But that goes with the infrastructure, and that's one of those areas that there are a number of other objectives that fit into this, and that will be one of them that will fit in that we'll be working on this year as well.
Okay, and the other one was economic development. Looking at the chart we just seen, you've seen a great deal of young people moving into the city. We have the college coming in now and expanding. Has there been any plans made to target the 35, 30 age group and under for marketing? And
well, that is that's our, and we can present the that information to the council. It goes back to when we did our marketing strategy a few years back. That is our target demographic. It's actually, I believe, 28 to 38 is our target market, and that doesn't mean we exclude anyone on either side of that. But
absolutely.
that's the target that we're looking at.
But that seems to be the downtown of the future.
That's correct.
And is there any program specifically for that now? Or?
That's what our marketing strategy is geared around that, and we're expanding that and adjusting that. We're utilizing some new media to achieve that, to that target audience, or hit that target audience, yes. But we can reference that perhaps within the strategic plan.
And finally, with the schools, has there been a program or a study done how much work we need to put into the schools over the next few years?
In terms of capital?
Yeah.
The school department has a capital plan that they're fine-tuning, that they will then be passing on to us. Hopefully they'll have that to us within the next couple of weeks, because we're in the process of updating that capital plan. But they provide us with that information.
And that will be the complete infrastructure, the buildings, the grounds, so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Martin and Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad Councilor Laurie brought up this idea of the bridges, because I think a lot of our traffic problems and complaints are related to the recent bridge construction. I'm cautiously optimistic we're going to see improvement with the Quinn Holmes Bridge completed Hunts Falls, with the Central Street Bridge completed downtown, and then with the new University Ave Bridge opening. So I think we at least shouldn't see anything get worse. But I think that begs the question, what do we do with the other bridges? What's the plan so that we don't face severe situations like we've had? So I agree with those comments, and happy to hear that they'll be included.
Councilman Mendonça.
It certainly bodes well. It seems like we're on the right track, given that there's not that much change in the goals. The sub-goals, there's some new ones, which is understandable. And my priority, it continued to be goal number 2, finances, obviously. We do want to take care of our enterprise funds. At the same time, we want to continue to improve the city's financial standing and its stability. So that going forward, whatever projects we want or need to do will have the most advantageous financing, or even refinancing as we move forward with some of that. So we may not be able to make grand steps in it, but we do not want to lose any ground, and we want to gain whatever ground we can in that. Secondly, for me, is the infrastructure. Clearly, there's a need. 40% of our roads need improvement or rebuilding almost, I guess, for the most part. And we do have to address the unaccepted streets, if for no other reason than to make more Chapter 90 funds available to us to address those streets. Along that, a couple of other councils have already brought up bridges. They've made good points. And I think some of those are being addressed. And I think it's time that without spending any great capital or money on it, we need to focus on Rourke Bridge and its permanent replacement. We need to do more in that. So under infrastructure, I think it's something that needs to be addressed. But obviously in the next 1 or 2 years, we're not going to have funds to do that much. But we could meet with our state delegation and build the foundation for moving forward. Also, my third priority is to continue our support for education. We've met our goal of having over 100% of net school spending over the last few years. I think we need to continue that. The capital plan is a way to address some of that as well, make sure we continue to maintain our facilities. But as we do the master plan, we're looking at growth, whether it's residents or housing. That's going to entail demands on our infrastructure, whether it be city services, water, sewage, but also schools and education. And we want to make sure that we're ready, that if we do have some growth, that our schools are ready to accept that growth. I thank you for your efforts.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Councilor. And if I could just comment on a few of your comments. I couldn't agree with you more on the infrastructure. I think that the fact that it's 40% of the streets are in such terrible shape is really is evidence of the lack of investment in infrastructure over the years that we need to address, and we need to fix that. And getting the streets accepted means more revenue coming in. So certainly that is a priority. Likewise, we're very pleased that we were able to finally meet that net school spending in the last couple of years, the first time since it went into place in '93, and it is our intention to keep that status, and likewise the capital that goes with that. The finances, we've touched upon a number of different areas here that we heard from councilors, but I hope the council is, and I'm sure the council is aware of the tremendous strides that have been made in terms of our financial stability, and we're in far better financial shape now than we've probably been in 7 or 8 years here in the city. But I had an opportunity to speak to the Chamber of Commerce this morning, along with some of the other managers, and I think certainly the concern that we have, and you'll hear this when we get into the budget, is that we have to remain vigilant in moving forward with that financial stability. Things are improving, but that doesn't mean we lose sight of the need for investing in reserves and putting money in reserves and having the proper policies in place and the proper strategies. It's interesting, I had another meeting today where we talked about, and I know Councilor Dakota is no longer with us, but this was one of her pet issues of the legacy costs, the unfunded liabilities that we have out there. And certainly that's been something that we've been very concerned about, setting the city up for the future. Not for the next year, 2 years, probably not it's probably not going to be felt until the next 10 or 20 years. But the city has to chop away at the issue of unfunded liabilities. And the big one for us right now is the post-employment benefits, the GASB 45 requirements, and that's why health costs was such a big achievement for us last year, and it remains a very big issue that we need to fund that moving forward. And as I said, I had another meeting today with a number of other municipalities in Boston, and frankly, I was surprised at the number of communities that have jumped ahead of us in terms of starting to set money aside for those costs, that unfunded liability. We have not been in a position to do that because of the financial condition we were in several years back, and pulling ourselves out of that has been our major goal. But we have to start setting aside money for that, those health insurance costs moving forward. And so that's going to be that has to be a priority here as well.
Thank you. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Managers. All the 8 goals are great, but I'd like to focus on some of them. One is goal number 3, public safety. I would very much like the city to continue and support a proactive approach in addressing issues of safety in our city and engaging the community in this effort. I also like to see if we can continue on supporting goal number 5, that is the development of neighborhood businesses, small businesses in our neighborhood. I also like to see that we continue to engage and partner with the university as well as the Middlesex Community College. And you don't have it here. I'm sure you have it in somewhere there. And also the after-school program, because as you know, it's important in terms of go hand in hand in public safety. To have kids having activity after school, so that, and also build a relationship with the city police department, and building a relationship with families as well, so that way and proactively address and prevent any crime happen in our city. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy and Councilor Mercia.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out Councilor Mendonça talked about the Rourke Bridge and the replacement to the Rourke Bridge. It's my understanding, and Councilor Laurie could probably confirm this, that the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments is doing a feasibility study on that new bridge now, and that new bridge, that feasibility study won't be completed until probably the end of this council term, maybe the last couple of months. And there's really not a lot that can be done up until that time, but after the feasibility study is finished, and then if we can, and the surrounding communities can decide on an alignment, then it will be up to working with the delegation to get funding for the bridge, and that'll be kind of a big deal. And I also think what's going to be critical to having that bridge have the impact that we would like to see it have on traffic reduction in the city will be access roads on either side of the bridge. But it's Council Laurie can confirm it, but I think that feasibility study is underway, and I think that feasibility study will be done in the fourth quarter of 2013.
Add to Councilor Kennedy and Councilor Laurie's comments there. There is a study underway that's a joint study involving through the NIMCOG involving the city and the town of Chelmsford, that whole corridor, and again that's something that will be finishing up in a period of time. We do have representation. We are participating in that process. So along Councilor Mendonca's request, that certainly is an action item, a strategy that we're working on by our participation, and we'll be involved in that. So it is going to be a long process to get that approved.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see these goals as very productive, and we all have things that we share an infinity for, like infrastructure is very important. If you went around the city, the first thing in people's minds are the streets, the sidewalks, the potholes, that's very important to them. And I know that my colleagues are talking about the big items, the bridges, the water structure, the this and everything else. But it's sometimes the simple things as well. And I take you back to when I was a kid, which probably you could never go back that far. But the thing is, we were always taught that it isn't the expensive homes or the expensive furnitures, but it's how you keep whatever you have clean. And when I look at a city, the people that come in here, their first impression is the roads, it's the cleanliness. And I think a goal should be that, yes, it's very important to have a clean city. It's not a very rich city, but boy, was it clean. And I really think that way. And we can lead by example to make sure that this city hall is clean. I know we had a windstorm, but coming in, there's papers all over the place. There's cigarette butts and gum and everything. This, to me, is not an appealing thing for people coming into the city hall to pay their bills. And I would think that we have people that could go out there and keep it clean. I know that it's not their fault. It was a very windy day, but these are the things that are very little, but they mean a lot to the people to the pride in our city. Pride equals cleanliness to me. I think that.
Okay. I agree, Councilor.
So that's a goal, I think. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the report? Seeing none, motion to accept as a report of progress by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Entertain then a motion to adjourn by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Mendonca. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.